Blake Lively really thought she could walk away from this whole disaster looking like the victim, but girl, the judge just shut that fantasy down fast, because after months and months of nonstop legal chaos, late night filings, PR spin, and what honestly looked like a personal revenge campaign against Justin Baldoni, the judge finally said enough is enough. And now Blake is reportedly furious because she just got denied the one thing she desperately wanted most: her attorney fees. And we are not talking about a few $1,000s here. We are talking about tens of millions of dollars burned in this legal war. Hollywood level money. The kind of money where even rich celebrities start panicking once the bills hit the table. And honestly, the more details that come out about this situation, the worse Blake Lively looks. Because according to reports surrounding the case, the judge became increasingly irritated with how aggressive Blake's legal team had become during the final stages of the lawsuit. Apparently, there were constant late night filings, massive overstuffed legal documents, and repeated attempts to pressure other people connected to the case into helping cover Blake's legal expenses. Like, imagine claiming to stand for women while simultaneously threatening female PR executives and witnesses behind the scenes. That's the part that really made people stop and go, wait a second, what is actually going on here? The judge reportedly got tired of the nonstop legal theatrics. At one point, he basically told Blake's team to relax and stop bombarding the court with endless letters and filings because he already had enough information. And that says a lot. Judges do not like when people weaponize the court system for personal vendettas, especially federal judges. They see through that stuff very quickly. And according to insiders following this case, Judge Lewis Lehman was completely exhausted by the constant drama surrounding Blake's filings. And honestly, some of the tactics being described sound wild. We're talking about 70-page documents being filed late at night on the East Coast, heavily redacted pages, endless filler, and only a few actual pages focus on the real legal claims. It started looking less like somebody fighting for justice and more like somebody trying to overwhelm the other side until they gave up. Like one giant paper war designed to bleed everyone dry emotionally and financially. And the crazy part is Blake allegedly believed Justin Baldoni and the others involved should pay for all of it. That's where this attorney fee battle became a huge issue. Blake reportedly tried using California Civil Code Section 47.1 to recover her legal fees. That law was originally created to protect genuine survivors from retaliatory lawsuits. The whole purpose was to stop victims from being financially destroyed after speaking out publicly, but Blake's critics are now saying she tried twisting that law into a weapon against Justin Baldoni, his company, and even PR consultants tied to the case. And people online immediately started pointing out how strange the entire strategy looked. Because first of all, the lawsuit itself was already falling apart publicly. Multiple claims had already been dismissed earlier in the process, and certain allegations reportedly became questionable once text messages and evidence started surfacing. One example people keep bringing up is the trailer incident, where Blake allegedly framed Justin entering her trailer as inappropriate. But later messages reportedly showed she had invited him inside herself. Once that detail came out, a lot of people started side-eyeing the entire narrative. Then came the legal gymnastics. Blake's team allegedly tried using California law in a New York federal court over a movie that was filmed largely in New Jersey. And when that wasn't enough, similar legal strategies reportedly showed up in Texas too. At that point, people were like, okay, so are we just shopping for whichever state law gives the best chance at forcing someone else to pay the bills? Because that's what this started feeling like. Not justice, not accountability, just desperation. And meanwhile, Justin Baldoni wasn't exactly backing down quietly either. That's what makes this whole thing even crazier. Usually, independent filmmakers or smaller Hollywood players would crumble under this kind of pressure from two massive celebrities like Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. But Justin stayed in the fight, and apparently that shocked a lot of people in the industry. Because remember, this was not just Blake. Ryan Reynolds was heavily involved too. Reports claim Ryan was rewriting scripts, influencing promotional campaigns, using his production company Maximum Effort, and helping shape the public narrative around Justin during the peak of the controversy. Ryan was allegedly fully in the trenches helping Blake manage this war behind the scenes. But then something interesting happened. The moment the public narrative started turning, Ryan suddenly disappeared, and people noticed immediately. While Blake was out there facing reporters and awkward red carpet questions alone, Ryan Reynolds was reportedly down in Bermuda attending sailing events like none of this was happening. And I'm sorry, but the optics of that were terrible. Because for years, Blake and Ryan sold the public this perfect power couple image. Funny interviews, cute red carpet moments, social media jokes, the whole Hollywood fantasy package. But during arguably Blake's biggest public crisis ever, Ryan was nowhere to be seen. And people online started asking the obvious question: if Blake was truly innocent and unfairly attacked like they claimed, then why did Ryan suddenly vanish when things got ugly? Ryan Reynolds disappearing at the worst possible moment honestly became one of the biggest conversation points around this entire mess. Because suddenly the same man who allegedly helped Blake fight Justin Baldoni behind the scenes was nowhere around once the legal pressure started crushing her publicly. And people started noticing how carefully Ryan seemed to distance himself once evidence, court filings, and settlement discussions became public knowledge. Meanwhile, Blake kept doubling down. And this is where the story starts getting even messier, because apparently Blake's team became obsessed with recovering those legal fees no matter what. According to multiple reports surrounding the case, Blake was not only pursuing Justin Baldoni and his company financially, but also targeting other people connected to the situation, including female PR professionals and witnesses. And that's where public opinion really started shifting hard against her. Because think about the image Blake tried to present to the world. She positioned herself as this brave woman standing up against powerful men in Hollywood. That was the narrative. But then behind the scenes, reports started surfacing about aggressive legal tactics aimed at women who simply could not afford the kind of legal warfare Blake and Ryan were capable of funding. And people were like, hold on. Something about this does not match the public image at all. The judge reportedly noticed that too. At one point, insiders claimed the court became visibly irritated with the constant pressure tactics being used throughout the litigation process. The late night filings, the giant, heavily redacted documents, the nonstop motions, it reportedly started looking like a strategy designed to exhaust people financially and emotionally instead of focusing on the actual substance of the case. And honestly, once people started looking deeper into the filings, the cracks became impossible to ignore. Because Blake's legal strategy heavily depended on portraying Justin Baldoni's countersuit as retaliation under California's survivor protection laws. But critics immediately pointed out the obvious issue: this case was not unfolding cleanly inside California jurisdiction at all. Yet somehow California law kept appearing in arguments tied to New York and even Texas proceedings. Legal commentators online started calling it desperation, like Blake's team was grabbing onto any possible loophole that might force somebody else to cover these massive bills. And the numbers being thrown around were insane. Some reports claimed the combined legal war between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni reached nearly $60 million. Other discussions pushed estimates even higher. Either way, everybody agreed this thing turned into one of the most expensive celebrity legal battles in recent memory. And by the end of it, the court seemed completely exhausted. But what really pushed this whole thing into full celebrity gossip territory was the PR machine surrounding Blake. Because once Blake realized public opinion was shifting, suddenly major crisis management people started appearing around her camp. One name that kept resurfacing was Nick Shapiro, who allegedly began helping frame the public messaging around Blake's legal fight. And according to reports, the argument being pushed publicly was basically this: if Justin Baldoni wins these legal battles, then women everywhere lose protections against retaliation. Now listen, that is a very emotional argument. And Blake's team clearly hoped people would emotionally connect those broader women's rights issues directly to Blake's personal lawsuit. But critics immediately pushed back because they felt Blake was trying to wrap herself inside larger social movements to shield herself from criticism, especially after details started emerging that weakened parts of her original claims. And honestly, the internet was not buying it anymore. People started seeing this less as a story about empowerment and more as a story about celebrity privilege gone completely out of control. Because while Blake was publicly talking about emotional stress and legal hardship, she was also showing up at the Met Gala carrying luxury accessories worth more than most people's annual salaries. And girl, the timing could not have been worse. Just hours after the lawsuit settlement developments became public, Blake arrived at the Met Gala acting like everything was perfectly fine, cameras flashing, big smiles, fashion interviews, and then she started talking about her custom purse inspired by her children's artwork like it was some deeply emotional creative masterpiece. Except the internet immediately found out the luxury designer had already been making those exact kinds of custom bags for wealthy clients for years. Then it got worse. People realized versions of the bag were being sold for around $10,000. So now Blake was standing there talking about emotional struggles and legal stress while casually carrying around a tiny crystal-covered purse worth more than most people's rent for months. The optics were absolutely terrible, and honestly, Blake just kept making herself look more disconnected from reality every single week. The story continued. But wait until you hear what happened during the settlement negotiations, because this is the part that truly shocked people following the case. Apparently, Blake and Ryan desperately wanted one specific thing included in the settlement agreement: an NDA, a full non-disclosure agreement. They reportedly wanted Justin Baldoni permanently silenced from publicly discussing what happened during this entire nightmare. And honestly, that alone tells you how nervous they were becoming about Justin eventually telling his side publicly. Because by this point, the narrative had already shifted massively online. But Justin Baldoni and his wife, Emily, reportedly refused completely. And according to insiders, Emily Baldoni played a major role in standing firm during negotiations. Reports claim she pushed back hard against any attempt to silence Justin publicly. The message was basically simple: no NDA or no deal. And honestly, that might have been the moment Blake Lively realized she had completely lost control of the situation. Because once Justin Baldoni refused to sign that NDA, everything changed. Suddenly, Blake and Ryan could no longer guarantee silence. They could no longer control the story behind closed doors. And for two people who built their entire public image around carefully managing perception, that had to be terrifying. According to reports surrounding the settlement, Blake was allegedly desperate to avoid going to trial. And honestly, can you blame her at that point? The public narrative had already shifted dramatically. Every new filing seemed to create more questions instead of sympathy. People were picking apart inconsistencies online daily. Legal commentators were criticizing the strategy. Even casual celebrity gossip pages were turning against her. And the thing is, once discovery starts fully unfolding in high-profile cases like this, it becomes dangerous for everyone involved. Text messages surface, emails surface, internal conversations surface. Nothing stays private anymore. That is exactly why so many celebrity lawsuits settle before trial. Because once everything becomes public record, there is no undo button. So eventually Blake agreed to settle. But here's the part people keep focusing on. No money reportedly changed hands. There was no admission of guilt. And most importantly, Justin Baldoni walked away without being silenced. No gag order, no permanent restrictions. Nothing stopping him from speaking publicly later if he wants to. And apparently Hollywood insiders already believe Justin is preparing for exactly that, because now there are rumors everywhere about possible interviews, documentaries, streaming deals, even book offers. Some reports claim Justin Baldoni could receive millions for a full tell-all project about everything that allegedly happened behind the scenes during It Ends With Us and the legal war afterward. And honestly, people would absolutely watch it. This entire scandal became one of the most bizarre Hollywood public implosions in recent memory, especially because it exposed how brutal celebrity PR campaigns can allegedly become once reputations are threatened. And Justin's supporters believe that is exactly what happened to him. They think Blake and Ryan used every ounce of celebrity influence they had to crush him publicly before evidence could even properly come out. They point to media narratives, coordinated PR messaging, social pressure campaigns, and celebrity connections all moving against Justin almost immediately after after accusations surfaced, which brings us to one of the weirdest parts of this entire story: Vital Voices. Now, this situation genuinely shocked a lot of people because Vital Voices is supposed to be a respected nonprofit organization focused on women's empowerment and advocacy. Justin Baldoni had reportedly received an award from them recognizing his work supporting women and girls. It was a major public honor, but then almost immediately after Blake filed her legal complaint, the organization publicly revoked Justin's award. And people started connecting dots very quickly because Blake Lively reportedly followed the organization publicly online, and critics began speculating that powerful Hollywood connections may have influenced the timing of everything. Now, obviously, nobody can prove private conversations happened behind closed doors, but online discussions exploded over how perfectly timed the whole thing looked. Justin gets honored publicly, allegations suddenly explode, the award gets revoked, and his reputation takes a massive hit overnight. To many people following the story, it started looking less like coincidence and more like a coordinated humiliation campaign. And honestly, that's the kind of stuff that makes the public deeply uncomfortable. Because once charities, media outlets, PR firms, celebrity friendships, and legal pressure all start overlapping together, regular people begin feeling like the system itself is rigged for wealthy celebrities. Meanwhile, Blake kept making public appearances that only seemed to worsen her image. The Met Gala situation especially became symbolic of everything critics disliked about her during this controversy, because while average people were hearing about enormous legal costs and emotional suffering, Blake was out there promoting luxury fashion, discussing custom accessories inspired by her children, and walking red carpets like nothing had happened. And the internet absolutely dragged her for it. People called it tone deaf, out of touch, privileged. Some even said Blake seemed completely unable to understand how normal people viewed this entire situation anymore. Because while she was allegedly trying to force other people to cover legal bills, she was simultaneously carrying luxury items worth thousands and presenting herself as some struggling victim. The contrast was brutal. And then there's Colleen Hoover. Honestly, this part of the story became really sad because Colleen Hoover got pulled into the fallout, whether she wanted to or not. When Justin Baldoni originally acquired the rights to It Ends With Us, he reportedly worked closely with Colleen and involved her heavily in the process. By all accounts, he respected the source material deeply. But once Blake entered the picture and tension started building behind the scenes, fans noticed Colleen appeared to shift publicly toward Blake's side. She unfollowed Justin online, posted supportive things about Blake, and stayed silent while Justin faced massive backlash publicly. And that decision backfired badly because now a huge chunk of readers blamed Colleen for abandoning Justin too quickly before all the evidence surfaced. Fans accuse her of getting swept up in Hollywood celebrity culture and choosing status over loyalty. Whether that's fair or not, her reputation definitely took a hit from this entire mess. And honestly, that's the craziest part about this whole scandal. Almost everybody involved walked away damaged somehow. Blake Lively's carefully crafted image took a massive hit. Ryan Reynolds suddenly looks suspiciously absent whenever things become difficult. Colleen Hoover upset part of her audience. Hollywood PR culture got exposed in ugly ways. And Justin Baldoni, the guy many people originally assumed was finished, somehow walked away with public sympathy growing around him instead. That is not the ending Blake Lively expected at all.